You can tell SNK were proud of their fighting games, and rightly so, as this is the third they released already on the Neo Geo Pocket, and we're only just into double figures in the library. The first game, King of Fighters Round 1, shared the same storyline, such as storylines are in fighting games. It's often just the cast members and whoever the final boss is, as the King of Fighters 97 for arcade, Neo Geo CD and so on, and marked the end of the Orochi saga that had actually taken place over the course of 3 games since 1995. Round 2 is not quite a direct sequel to that game, in that the arc was over. It's based on the storyline of King of Fighters 98 and has a different final antagonist. Now you'll be fighting against a guy called Rugal Bernstein, a German baron who we first saw in King of Fighters 94 and who died in 95. He's now a reanimated monster called Omega Rugal and is similarly creating clones of many of the mainline characters and making them do his bidding. Compared to Round 1, the roster features several returning mainstays, as well as a handful of faces that weren't in the first Neo Geo Pocket game. Also, some of the teams have switched up. If you're not aware, typically you can take the story modes in these games with your favourite solo character, or in a team of 3. The characters you can choose align themselves loosely within these trios that might be called the Super Babe team, or the New Faces, or whatever. The New Faces must have turned heel or something at the end of Round 1, because they're now named after the deceased villain of that game, calling themselves Orochi Team. Athena and Yuri Sakazaki have kicked Mai Shiranui out of the heroines, recruited Art of Fighting's Kasumi Todo, and renamed themselves the Super Babes. Mai herself has replaced Kim Kafwan as the third member of Terry Bogard's Southtown team, with Kim not featuring at all this time around. All that's not really relevant unless you care a lot about the lore, because if you choose to play the game 3 on 3, you can just pick whichever 3 combatants you want anyway. You're not restricted to a set trio. How this team mode works is rather simple. You'll pick your 3, then the order in which you want them to fight. The first fighter from each team will face off, with the winner staying on. Note that you don't regain very much health between rounds. That would be totally unfair. It seems to be something like 10%. If you can wipe out the enemy trilogy before they do the same to you, you'll move on. After 2 lots of fights, you'll come across a solo fight. This is a bit of a tougher scrap, but made easier because it's 3 on 1 this time. Same goes right at the end when you're fighting Rugal. You get 3 fighters but only have to beat him once, and his health doesn't regenerate that much. Luckily, there are 3 difficulty levels to choose from. Be aware though that the game actually defaults to hard, so you might want to go into the options and change that if it's your first time. The heart of any King of Fighters game is its gameplay, and you'll find, especially if you're playing this on original hardware or something with an analog stick, that this game really shines in this regard. Like its siblings on the system, these games are perfectly sculpted to feel so natural within the confines of the system. Luckily though, if you only have a D-pad at your disposal, or worse, a keyboard, you're more than able to still play the game. You might not enjoy trying to pull off the special attacks quite as much, but then that's true of virtually all fighting games. It makes me wonder how games like Street Fighter 2 or Mortal Kombat were so popular on SNES or Genesis. There's pretty much no way I could readapt to an up, down, left, right controller after being spoiled with this one. One of the cool new features in Round 2 is this making mode, and it's actually the better game mode probably. Here, you're able to create a custom character to a certain extent. Nothing graphically. You'll choose a base fighter that you want to model yourself on, rename them, and then through the story campaign you can sculpt your movesets, abilities, and even add special features to your character like unique win phrases and such. It's not massively deep, but definitely invites a replayability factor that you love to see. With a story mode that can be completed in a relatively short amount of time, it's certainly welcome. The real appeal of King of Fighters and any sort of game like this isn't just about beating the final boss, though. That's almost irrelevant. It comes from learning and mastering specific characters, as they all have their own feel and intricacies to get the hang of. It's important to recognize that, yes, Round 2 might not be as deep or complex as its arcade or console counterparts, but the roster size is admirable and movesets are full enough to bring plenty of variation depending on who you pick. What you're looking at here is, put most simply, one of the best games on this system, and one of the best handheld fighting games of its era. It's a real testament to SNK's ability to adapt their franchises to basically any of their platforms. Between the AES, the MVS, or this beautiful little portable thing, there's a real feeling of continuity. If you know one, you'll feel at home with the others. Crucially, it feels like all of them had the same level of attention given to them. Nintendo in the late 90s certainly didn't care about the Game Boy Color as much as they did their N64.